wanted to be not a pain in the ass to somebody.
Welcome to Let's Talk, ladies, conversations across generations. I'm MB Roberts, an author and journalist, and this is a podcast where we talk to women from their 20s to their 90s about a bunch of hot topics. We ask questions, share experiences, and learn from each other. And it's not just about older women giving advice. We want to know what younger women are thinking too. So let's get talking. Allison Moorer is a 52-year-old singer, songwriter, author, and a mom. She grew up in small-town Frankville, Alabama, and became a well-known and beloved Americana artist. Her music, it will just fill up your heart and make you cry. Of her many accolades for her music, she counts an Academy Award nomination for a song from her first album, A Soft Place to Fall. It was in the Robert Redford movie, The Horse Whisperer, if you remember that. And her books, I seriously barely have words. They are incredible. Sometimes Allison combines her music and the written word, which she did when in 2019, she released an album and memoir of the same name called Blood. In the book and in the songs, Allison told her life story, including before and after the absolute unimaginable. When she was 14, her father shot and killed her mother, then himself, right in the front yard while Allison and her sister slept inside. Allison Moorer is the true definition of an artist who's turned a deeply painful past into incredibly moving art where she explores pain, and incredibly she finds forgiveness, and surprisingly, she finds joy, all of it. Allison's sister is Americana artist Shelby Lynn, and the two have collaborated over the years. In 2017, they recorded an album, Not Dark Yet. If you haven't heard it, check it out. What may be the most interesting thing of all of this is Allison's next chapter, her current chapter. Recently, she joined the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum in Nashville as a writer and editor. We've talked about this a lot on Let's Talk, ladies. People, women, trying something new at different times in their lives. What's it like to get a real job after years of being a working, traveling musician? Let's ask Allison. Well, welcome, Allison. Thank you so much for being here. I've really looked forward to this. I've been a fan of your work, your music, and your writing for a long time. So this is really great that you're here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, that's awesome. So you've been a writer for as long as you can remember. Is that right? I was reading you wrote your first song when you were 8 years old.
Yeah, and then I took a bit of a break after that.
Between 10 and 11, yeah.
I guess that would have been the first time I realized that, I wouldn't have realized it at this young age, but it was the first time I distilled an experience into an art form.
Well, I'm so impressed that about your going and getting your Master of Fine Arts in creative writing a few years back. And was that specifically to prepare to write your first memoir? Was that the thinking there, or something you just always wanted to do?
It's not something I thought I would ever do. I've always, I considered myself lucky to have graduated college with a BA, in 1993. I wasn't even sure I would be able to do that. I lost my parents when I was young, so there wasn't really anybody in the wings pushing me to accomplish anything. But my mother put me in first grade when I was 5, which meant I graduated high school at 16, which meant there really wasn't that much for me to do but go to college. And I wanted to go anyway because I was desperately seeking some sort of security. And I knew that to make a living, I needed to probably have some sort of degree. That was, paired with, I have an older sister who signed her first record deal when she was 19, I think. Her first album came out when she was almost 21. So when is that right? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I moved up to Nashville right after I graduated high school, actually, for about a year before I went back down to Alabama and got my bachelor's. But my trajectory was always littered with singing. With her, with whatever it was, because she was a touring artist at that time, and I, was raised her harmony singer. So any chance I got to do that, I would do it. So when I graduated college, I moved back to Nashville and started singing background for her and learning about the music business. And I graduated with a degree in journalism. And I was really interested in doing that work, doing news writing and also, just any sort of writing like PR stuff. I was kind of in that lane in college. And so when I got up here and started touring with her on a regular basis, I had jobs here and there, but really I was learning about the music business and as much as one can. So then I started to write songs. I played piano as a kid, never picked up the guitar until that time after I graduated. When I graduated college and moved up here in 1993, I picked up the guitar and started learning how to play it. I bought a chord book. It's funny because people think musical families, you get taught everything. You don't. A lot of it you pick up by osmosis or you teach yourself because everybody else is too busy doing it to teach you.
Right. They don't want to take the time.
Particularly if you're the younger child. So yeah. I started learning chords and then I started writing songs just because I did. The performing door opened for me. And so I went through it. I didn't really know what it would add up to for me because I was never one of those people like my sister was who would sing in front of the mirror with a hairbrush. I maybe have done that once or twice in my whole life. Never did it when I was a kid. Like I just wasn't, that was not my desire to be on stage. And honestly, it never really fit. Like I did it but I was never a person who was excited to get on stage. Unless it was in a background singing situation, which I love and loved, and still love, and still would probably rather sing harmony than anything. But anyway, so I made records for MCA. I made a few for Sugar Hill, and all along the way, I was playing clubs. It's not like I was a commercial success. I was not. I was a singer-songwriter, kind of folky country, coming from really. I call it, I didn't go to big star school. I went to singer-songwriter school. And that was just sort of the way I went about it. And I also noticed, it was before I turned 30. I mean, I started touring at a really young age. I think my first time on a tour bus, I was 17, and I was out somewhere singing with my sister, opening up for Randy Travis at the height of his fame.
Oh, wow.
But at some point, I think I was 28 or 9. On my second record and touring in clubs, of course. And I remember just saying to myself, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 45.
Yeah.
This
is it's a grind. It's a grind. Yeah. And
it's also like, I don't want to come in the same club every 2 or 3 years and see the same graffiti and eat the same bags. I do not. This is not me. I've got to do more. I guess I'm just that way. It's like when I say, oh, I do work and it's behind me and I move on to the next thing. I like to be challenged and I like to do new stuff. And I didn't see the appeal of the rock and roll lifestyle past, the novelty of it. So anyway, fast forward through all of that, I continued to make records. I got married, had a child in 2010 named John Henry, who's just everything to me. He was diagnosed with autism, severe autism, at 23 months. And at that time, I realized very quickly I was not going to be able to continue to tour. And my life as a recording artist was probably going to be a lot shorter than it would have been had I been able to implement my plan, which was to keep touring keep making a living, making art, until he was ready to go to, preschool, kindergarten,
Yeah.
whatever. And then we would pivot to that and then try to, do summers or whatever. But I realized very quickly that he would have to have a lot of therapy, and I was going to be
Yeah.
the one that would stay home and make sure he got that. So
Yeah.
I knew my life was about to change drastically. I was living in New York City, and I had started writing Blood, my first book. Started
Hmm.
writing it in 2012. And when all of this happened with John Henry, I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do? How am I going to make a living? What in the world?
Right.
I was going through my second divorce. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to get an MFA, because not only will it teach me more about what I'm trying to do here, writing this memoir, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had never written really long form
Yeah.
anything before. And also, I knew it would give me a terminal degree, and I could teach or do something with it. It would,
Oh, right.
give me something, a credential that I could stand on and put food on the table for myself and my son. So I did that. I used Blood, my first book, as my thesis. So that was great. I was
Oh,
able to
that's
workshop
fantastic.
a
Yeah.
lot of that book, and I wrote it without having a deal for it, simply because I didn't want anybody breathing down my neck telling me how to write it. I wanted to figure out what the book was.
Well, it's
Along the way,
so special. It's so unique, and just it's really incredible piece of art. And I just love the fact that you also made music that went with it. What a story you told. And gosh, was that process? I know it was a very long process, but
yes.
there was, you were bringing up a lot of grief, a lot of trauma. Were you
Mhm.
able to put it behind you when the book was finished, or did it that take a while? Because now you have to, you're going on interviews for the book, you're having to talk about it. Was that a therapeutic thing for you? Were you able to put it behind you?
Certainly. Certainly it was. It was also a re-traumatizing thing, which is something that I did not realize I was doing to myself at the time. I lost my parents when I was 14 in a murder suicide.
Yeah.
I'm now 53. I was 14 when that happened.
Hmm.
I've done a lot of therapy. I've learned a lot about the language of expressing trauma and processing trauma, and, just mainly just trying to get a hold of myself and my wild life and process, all these crazy things that happened to me. At some point in my 40s, I just started saying, I'm one of those people with one of those lives. I don't know what to tell you. Because, someone meets me and they're here, even a thimbleful of my story, and they're like, my God. And I'm like, whoa, there's more.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You
you
haven't
know,
heard the half of it. Oh, I'm just getting started here. Oh,
but
well, I
I started writing that book in 2012. I started working with a literary agent that my manager at the time introduced me to, I think about a year and a half after that. And she and I would just sort of keep in touch, and I would write and then stop and then try to figure it out. When I started the MFA, I had probably 40 strong pages. And then through the
Mhm.
process of that 2 years, I think I rewrote that book two, if not three times. I can't even remember now. But
Mm.
I finished it right after I graduated on my 45th birthday,
Gosh.
June 21st, 2017. And I'm pretty sure I called it that day because I had officially outlived both my parents.
Oh,
And, it's just like, you know what? I'm done with the story now.
yeah.
I could have kept writing forever, trying to process, what does this all mean? But at some point, you're just staring at your belly button and going over the same thing again. And you have to just kind of go, okay, well, I've done what I can with this.
Yeah.
Having said that, if I went to write that book right now, it would probably be very different. But,
Sure, sure.
the thing about writing that stuff is, when I say re-traumatizing, I was raised on the notion that talk therapy is everything. And I do think that it is a lot, but it's not really dealing with your trauma. And if you continue to just open that up and open it up and open it up and open it up, it's like it can't scab over. I part of my
Hmm.
experience with making records was doing interviews, which I absolutely hated to do, because everyone would try to bring up what happened to my parents. First of all, it was much fresher then. We're talking about a decade as opposed to over 3 decades. But I would always come away feeling like someone had taken a cheese grater to me and I wouldn't understand
Oh
why. And it
my.
was because it's re-traumatizing. It
Right.
is when you have to pull the thing up and then you have to give a considered answer. Well, you got to think about it,
Yeah.
or you can come up with an answer that just is rote, and that's what I
Yeah.
did. That's what I
I
did.
would
When it
think
was
that
just
would
like,
be a way to handle it. And like the part that I'm sure I believe I've heard you say that people miss it, and what I loved about your book was that there was also joy in there. There was this trauma, this incredible things that you've overcome, but there was this joy, there's forgiveness in there. There's just that some really lovely things. And that's part of your story too. Like, so,
absolutely. And, that's part of the reason why I wrote the book. Because of the perception of my parents in the press, because my sister got famous
mhm.
really soon after that happened. And there were pieces in the Enquirer and, those uh, journalists that we won't call them a name, but we know what they are, a National Enquirer journalist
Yeah.
uh, tracked down my grandfather in rural Alabama and made him think that they were going to write this glowing piece, this nice piece on my father. And so they got pictures from him, and then it ended up just being awful. And
Oh,
so,
that's hideous.
yeah, it is hideous. And the truth
Mm,
about my parents is they were beautiful folks. They were
mm,
smart, they were talented, they were sexy, they were artists, they were, very charismatic, people with a lot of magnetism, and they did know how to find joy. Our lives were crazy, but it was a series of highs and lows. Somehow my mother, through all that she endured, kept her spirit, and even though, you know, there was a lot of beating down of her
mm.
spirit, she still had spunk, and she still was, one of the smartest people I've ever met, resourceful. And I write about this in that book. Both of my parents were artists, and they just taught me, look, if you want something, then you can go out in the woods and you can find materials. And my daddy had a workshop and every tool imaginable. My mother made clothes, and they both knew how to do things with their hands, and they also knew how to do a lot with a little.
Yeah, which
So, and we
you've
sang,
kept with you. Yeah.
we had music, we
Mm.
had, they had love in them. They had joy in them. They were unfortunately both addicts. My father was an addict and my mother was addicted to him. So that ended, in a horrible way. But the thing about that story is it's not that different from a lot of people's stories. It's just that the ending is different from most people's.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's well. And so writing a memoir first, and then shifting to a job where you write every day. How perfect is it that you're working in? I mean, I'm projecting. I should ask you. I just think it's magnificent that you're working at the Country Music Hall of Fame as a writer and editor, and doing it. You did this in your early 50s. Like I'm going to try something completely new. I mean, certainly you've studied journalism, you have writing chops, but now you are helping to curate exhibits. I mean, the Dolly exhibit, you worked on the Dolly Parton
Mhm.
exhibit.
Yeah.
So first of all, how did you decide to even do that? How did that come about?
Well, like most things that are perfect come about by total surprise.
Mm-hmm.
I had this idea because, well, I wrote Blood, and then I wrote another memoir too, which
Yes.
I released in 2021, about my son and our lives together, which there'll probably be a volume two of at some point. But it's called
It's so beautiful, and the EP that goes along with it,
oh,
"Wish for You," is
thank,
so lovely, and
thank,
that you made inspired by and with him, and it's really wonderful.
which is a totally channeled project. I have to add, that's just so much him. Anyway, I after that book, I was just really wrung out. I didn't feel like I ever wanted to tell anything about myself ever again.
I can
And
see that you put it all out there.
yeah, I couldn't see another book on my horizon at that time. And I was on my third marriage, which has since ended. And I knew it was coming, honestly. And so I started trying to figure out how to not be in the vulnerable position I was in as a working artist financially ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know what? I'm an educated person. I'm a smart person. I'm a capable person. I think it's time that I did a pivot and got a job, got some health insurance, and got some stability for myself and my son so that we're not ever worried
Mm-hmm.
about the roof over our heads again, because I had once again gotten married and put too many of my eggs in somebody else's basket. And so I wanted my eggs back in my basket.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this idea to do a literary journal written by singer-songwriters. And I was introduced to Paul Kingsbury and Michael Gray
Mm-hmm.
at the museum. And we were talking about, what are the possibilities here? Is this something y'all would be interested in? That project didn't pan out. But during this decision that I had made, like, I'm gonna start looking for a job. I had made a LinkedIn profile, and about a week after I did, I was like, God, this mess is driving me crazy. Got to get off of here, and just like I don't want to do LinkedIn. Jeez, but for
Oh,
whatever
it's
reason,
overwhelming. It's
I
so
left the
overwhelming.
app on my phone, and I was somewhere. I don't know. It was between. It was like in that dead week between Christmas and New Year's,
Mm-hmm.
2023. So this is almost 2 years ago. I just was sitting at an airport or something and I clicked on LinkedIn for whatever reason. And this job popped up in my face. And I went, wow, that sounds like a great job for somebody. If I
Yeah.
was going to have a job, that would probably be the job I would want. Closed it. Mine was just somewhere else. And then a couple days later, I went, why did I close that? Why am I not investigating that? That sounds so amazing. And I love the museum. And I knew Michael and Paul Kingsbury. And so I emailed Michael Gray and I said, hey, I saw this LinkedIn thing for this writer editor job. Is that real? And he emailed me right back and he said, well, we've technically closed applications, but I'd love to talk to you about it.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, I'd love to talk to you about it too. So we set an appointment to talk. We talked. Gosh, it was about a 3-month process, but out of a lot of applicants, they decided to hire me. And I was just blown away. I was just like, well, I hope I don't let you down because y'all know I'm not a civilian. Though I can do civilian things. And it's so funny, getting older. Like I used to be a person who was never late for anything. Then, I had a child and I became a person who didn't like to be late, but was late occasionally. And now that I have a job, a full-time job, and I'm a mother, and I
Mm-hmm.
have, I'm single, divorced, and I have 3 cats and a dog, I'm late pretty much all the time, which drives me
But you
crazy.
feel bad about
But
it.
well, I do. And so the schedule was a little bit hard for me, but I also like structure. I really thrive on structure.
Oh, well,
Um,
that's perfect then. And then
yeah.
like that, you're getting to do some really, really creative things. I know that we have a mutual friend at the Hall of Fame who was telling me you're going to be doing some interviews on stage with some artists, and I think that's a perfect combination of writing and performing
Well, it's
and
interesting, I said to someone here, I said, I kind of came to work here so I could get off stage, but
right.
I keep getting put up
They
there.
keep pulling you back in.
Yeah, I'm hosting the Poets and Prophets program right now, which is a deep dive on songwriters. We do three or four of those a year, like
Yeah.
for, the master writers who've had 50 number one hits or whatever, but also, singer-songwriters like Steve Earle who have made a huge impact.
Yeah. And
And
you are hosting that
I am hosting that. Yeah. And I'm working on exhibits. There's always some writing to do,
yeah.
whether we're doing a book and I need to write a chapter on the 1940s and 50s of country music, or, if there's a panel that needs to be written for an exhibit that's going up or whatever it is. But I simply love the work. And I've said, as far as civilian jobs go, this is probably one of the few I could have. I don't know how true that is now, but at the beginning, this job was definitely the one I needed to sort of crossed me over from working artist, which I
Mm-hmm.
do miss, by the way. Some
Mm-hmm.
mornings I get up and I'm like, oh, I really just want to sit at my table and paint today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do all kinds of stuff. I make garments, I paint, uh, garden, I do a million different kinds of things. The learning curve for this job is so much less than I was faced with every day being a working artist and feeling like I had to do everything myself because everything is DIY now. So being able to step away from that and not be sweating it every second, like, am I going to have enough money to do whatever this month? Having a salary and benefits at age 53 is that was really the right thing for me. And two, I think I had this perception of myself. Well, wasn't really self-imposed. I've just been told I'm a pain in the ass for so long. I just,
Oh,
wanted to be not a pain in the ass to somebody. And so, just like if you're a woman and you're have an opinion and you're making noise and or you're objecting to whatever, or you're just being a person and trying to be an equal in a marriage, a relationship, a workplace, or whatever, or a band or the bus or whatever it is, there's a certain amount of misogyny that's going to seep through. And that isn't even, I'm not saying anything bad about men. That's who they are and that's the way they see things.
right, right.
But I wanted to be in an environment where equality was actually somewhat possible.
I love that you were, I mean, I don't love that you felt this way, but I love that you said, people have always told me I was a pain in the ass. And
Well,
now
I
it's
mean,
like,
it's true.
how do you overcome that?
I am, how you overcome it is you remove yourself from the room where you're being told that.
Yeah,
And you do your best to get in a situation where your opinion is valued. I said when I turned 40, in my early 40s, I said, wow, I feel like my knowledge has finally caught up with my intellect. You know, I felt for so long in my life like I was trying to learn things that I couldn't find, or I was trying to do things that I didn't have the infrastructure for, or, I'm just a person who's always been thrown in and been told, figure it out. I mean, just from my childhood, like learning how to swim. Well, our daddy threw us in the creek,
yeah.
and that's how you learn.
And then here you
Um,
are in your 20s and 30s and doing this incredible thing of being an artist and trying to make your way. You didn't know what you didn't know. And now you know what you
yeah,
don't know. Like, I
yeah.
think that's what I liked about being like late 40s, 50s is like, okay, I know I don't know how to do that. And I need to go get somebody to show me how to do that. Or I need to, or yeah, I don't want to do that because I've already
Hmm.
done that. I
Yeah.
didn't like it.
And you also
That's
know what
cool.
you do know.
Yeah.
And you, well, and just speaking for myself, I gained the confidence that I could back it up,
Yeah.
you know. And I think the difference in me now and me in my 20s and 30s is that, like,
Yeah.
I've never been called stupid, but I have been called a colossal pain in the ass or whatever you want to call it. I mean, by band members, by record label people, by husbands,
Yeah.
and I finally figured out what was causing that.
What,
Them.
speaking up? Because you were
Them.
speaking. Oh, them, of course. That's the common
It's like
denominator.
they are actually the pain in the ass, and I was just being me.
Yeah.
I never, that whole thing of taking up the space that
Hmm.
you're entitled to take up took a long time to dawn on me.
Yeah.
And so I think being where I am now, working at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, being able to take all of those things that I learned in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, being a recording artist, a writer, traveling the world touring, getting an MFA, becoming a mother, living in New York for 14 years, all of
Hmm.
those things, it really is true. Those things culminate in a way.
Yeah.
And I finally feel like I've grown into myself, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Like
it really
when
does.
I
And it's
turned 50,
so
I told my sister, I was like, well, now I can dress like the middle-aged lady I've always been in my
my head. There's a lot of freedom in that. I honestly do struggle a bit with the age thing, but then now you get me all fired up. Like just thinking of, gosh, I just think of I moved to New York in my 20s and stumbled around and went up there with like $300. It's like, no, I want to just talk to that person and go, no, we're not gonna do it that way. We're gonna do it like this, or it's really gonna hurt.
Well, at least you went.
Yeah, that's
At
true.
least you went.
I didn't, well, I was clueless. That's why, because if I'd known
And
how,
thank God we're clueless when we're young, or, we wouldn't have all these
that's right.
experiences to guide us now.
That's
So,
right. We would be
and,
so
I think,
safe. We would be so, that we would just be so timid and
yeah,
scared. And
I mean, it really is what they say. We never want to believe it when we're younger. Like,
hmm
but all the cliches are true. They're cliches for a reason. It's because they're true.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep,
Don't
that's right.
depend on a man for blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Don't let anybody tell you blah, 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 blah. And we do. And then we get our hearts broken and we do learn. And I'm not at all, I love men. Men, I
Yeah.
have, all the things. That is not it at all.
Right.
It's just there's a sense of entitlement and a sense of disentitlement when you're a woman, particularly in in any business, I think,
hmm
but in the music business is so male dominated, you
Yep.
know.
Yeah.
And it really has been driven home to me, that concept, since working at the museum. There are so way fewer female artists that are considered, I mean, just membership in the Hall of Fame. It's like a
Right, like
handful
how, like
compared
right,
to
it's a handful versus yeah, and you're learning so much about the history, and so you're looking like, well, wow, this has been going on for a long time. It's if it changes by 1% each year,
yeah,
like wait, maybe we'd like to speed it up a little bit, but
yeah,
well, I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I think that the work sounds so rewarding. Do you sometimes are people surprised to find you there? Like, let's say an artist is coming by or a journalist or, someone to the Hall of Fame and, are they pleasantly surprised to say, oh, I know your work. This is cool that you're here.
yeah. Everyone that I've run into says to me, I'm so glad you're there. They're delighted. Some people say, well, I hope you don't stop making records. And
Oh,
I always say, I'll make music when I feel like it.
hmm
And particularly if it's another artist, all I have to say is, well, it was time for health insurance. And they're like, I understand.
I know it.
Um, it's hard out there, and it's
hmm
hard if you're a woman in her 50s. And another thing about it is I didn't want to be picked apart physically anymore.
Oh
There's such
gosh.
a stigma, there's ageism in the entertainment industry. Well, again, in every industry, but
Oh,
you know,
especially.
people want you to sound like you sounded when you're 25, look like you looked when you were 25, and
Yeah.
that's just impossible.
Yeah. That's
So,
so stressful to keep up. You can't
yeah,
keep it up.
yeah.
Look, you're tying it all into a great bow. And I just, and you have so much knowledge, there's so much background and passion for all the topics.
I'll never stop being an artist. I am one. I can't not. I mean, I doodle at my desk. I do drawings at my desk.
Yeah.
It's just an inseparable part of me. But I also think that that's a reason why I'm here. It's
Yeah.
because I can I tend to look at art and art making as a holistic thing. I don't separate this from that, or it all works together. It's a weave, just like
Yeah,
life.
you get to be, you're not just, oh, well, you're a singer. You can't draw or
Yeah.
you can't write or you can't that's, well, keep it up. It's very inspiring to people who are 50 and kind of wondering, how could I make a big pivot? So that's very inspiring to me. And I'm so happy to talk to you. Thank you for talking to us today. This is
Yeah.
like I so appreciate it. It's a
I mean, we
joy.
could talk about this for hours, but thank you so much. I'm honored that you asked.
Yes, it was great having you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Let's Talk, Ladies, Conversations Across Generations. We'd love to hear from you. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. And you can comment on the episode on any of these platforms. We love the feedback, and it also really helps us with sponsors. So leave those comments. We so appreciate it. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can also send us an email at ltlconversations@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 629-888-3542. See you next time on LTL.